am not your wife, I am not your kid, I am your boss. It is my taxi. Imagine being 17 and you use all your pocket money in the beginning of the semester to start a business. That's exactly what I did. So I made a video about these, highlighting my business mistakes. And one of the questions I got the most was, how did you survive in the semester when you had used all your pocket money to start a business? I'm going to tell you that answer, but before I discuss that, let's talk about the challenges or some of the challenges I actually faced. So the first challenge I faced with my taxi business at the young age of 17 was lack of respect from my employees. So because I was young, a lot of my employees did not actually respect me. So most times they actually questioned the fact that I wanted regular updates about my business. So they were actually offended. So one of them actually asked me, "Oh, why do you care?" And I'm like, it is my business. I used my pocket money to buy this taxi. Because if you remember in the first video that I discussed about the biggest business mistakes I made while I was running the business, which the link is down below, I actually said, after 2 weeks, the taxi man that I bought the car for returned the taxi to me, and he gave me another taxi driver, and it didn't work out for me. So I kept changing drivers because they were quite offended. Because I was young, they felt like, oh, they could take advantage of me, not knowing that I actually do have some business experience. So quite alright, I did not have business experience in the taxi industry, but I actually had business experience that I have accumulated working with my mother. So I normally used to ask them operational questions. So things like, okay, so what rides did you do today? How much did you generate? How much did you spend on fuel? And they were very, very offended. One actually told me one day, like, how would you question me and ask me these questions? My wife doesn't ask me these questions. And I was very surprised because at the time I was not his wife, I was his boss. And I told him that, I'm like, I am not your wife, I am not your kid, I am your boss. It is my taxi. I pay for the operations to actually run this taxi, and I pay your salary, so you should be able to answer when I ask you questions. So because I was young, they felt like they could do whatever they like and they would never be questioned. So they were very surprised that I wanted to get involved in the day-to-day running of my business. They just expected that I would not want to be involved. And another challenge that I faced was the fact that I didn't really understand the industry when I got into the taxi business. Remember, I said the only reason I bought this taxi was because I didn't want someone I knew who lost his taxi to actually suffer. So he convinced me to buy him a taxi as a good form of investment, and he was going to pay me regularly. But this turned out to be a mistake, and I discussed this in the previous video. But what happened was, I didn't know the business practices while owning a taxi. I didn't know that you shouldn't give your taxi to someone to take overnight, because what I found out was they were using my taxi for their own side business. So they would travel to different states, they were making money off me, and they would tell me that they didn't make any money, and I wouldn't know this. And if you remember, they would inflate prices. So I didn't know that before you own a taxi business, you should have your own mechanic. You shouldn't let the driver just take your car to any mechanic, because they could collude with that mechanic and inflate the prices. There were so many mistakes I made. I didn't understand the industry. I got into a business because of emotions. I didn't do any business analysis. Don't be me. Do not make a business decision based on emotions. And as I said in the previous video, I learned from this, and every other business I did after this while I was home in Africa, I made sure that I succeeded, and that's because of the lesson I learned from this business. The final challenge that I faced was finances. Because I was so naive to the taxi industry or taxi business, the drivers took advantage of this. So as I told you, I let them go to their own mechanics, so they would inflate the prices of the parts. If one part is 8,000 naira, they'll tell me it's 80,000 naira. They will use the car overnight for their own personal use. I even found out that they were taking jobs on the side without me knowing. So every time they were trying, so if they came and they gave me some money, they'll find a way to take it back. They'll tell me, oh madam, one part got bad, sorry, we have to buy this, we have to pay this. So I ended up giving them back the money, and this really made it difficult for me that semester. And now I'll tell you how I survived. So the first thing I did was I sold 50% of my taxi business to my husband, who was my friend at the time. So he saw the challenges I was facing with the taxi drivers and me trying to get the business to work. So he it came to me and was like, oh, so would you sell 50% of your taxi business to me and we can both run it together? So that's exactly what I did. I sold 50% of the business to him so that we could run it together and maybe it would be successful. Another way I survived was my siblings. So me and my siblings, we went to the same university and we shared the same accommodation. When I ran low on cash, I would go to them, I'll borrow money and I'll pay them back when I got the money back. So that's how I survived that semester. The first one was I had to sell 50% of the taxi business to my friend who is my husband now, and he really helped me and we started to run the business together. It was a quick way for me to generate money. Another way I was able to generate money, as I said before, was my siblings, and that's how the taxi business kept going on until I finally had to drive the taxi myself. So I don't want to make this video very long. If you want to know the full story about the taxi business, please let me know down in the comment section below. If there's any question you have to ask me, if you own a taxi yourself or you are into the taxi business, tell me what I did wrong or what I should have considered when I decided to run a taxi business. Please feel free to add to this conversation, because when you leave a comment in the comment section below, it helps to boost the video. I want to say thank you to everybody who's watched till the end of the video. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you always know when I upload. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for being here. If you like videos like this, please let me know so I can make more videos.